Nobody really tells you about this part, about becoming a leader. Sometimes the thing you worked so hard to build finally starts working without you. And instead of feeling only proud, you feel a little lost too. Because when you have spent years becoming the person everybody needs, it can be surprisingly emotional when they begin needing you differently. Hey, my friend, it's Jules. 28 years ago, I was given a title and no handbook or playbook to work with because there wasn't one. I've spent a few years since figuring out how to lead a clinic without one. There was none, so I built one. Now I coach and mentor the new and accidental clinic managers coming up behind me because nobody should have to build that playbook completely alone. And today we are closing out season 4 with something I did not expect to feel the day it finally happened. This whole season has been about leading without holding everything. And I want to end with something I learned much later than I wish I had. The goal isn't to become the person nobody can function without. It's to help people learn how to think, make judgment calls, solve problems, and know when they actually do need you. Because eventually, the strongest evidence that your leadership is working may be that fewer things need to come through you. I don't remember every detail of this one anymore, but I believe it had something to do with figuring out an on-call rotation while the physician was out. But I remember exactly what one of our PAs said to me afterward. She said, I remember from onboarding that you told me if there's a problem, don't bring it to you immediately unless we have at least 3 win-win solutions. Now, that was not something I said in onboarding when I was a brand new manager. Absolutely not. That came much later after I had matured enough in my own leadership to stop feeling like I had to control every possible outcome. By then, I was bolder and more sure of myself, and I had reached this place where I thought, listen, there's very little of these people can mess up that I cannot fix. And I mean it, that in the healthiest way possible. Not reckless or careless, not some version of go do whatever you want and good luck. It was more like I trust you to think it through. Look at the situation and come up with options. You know, a win-win solution, and if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out together. That's how it rolled out. So that became part of how I onboarded new employees. If you have a problem, a situation, or a challenge, do not just walk into my office and hand it to me. Think it through first and bring it to me with at least 3 possible solutions. That was the deal. Tell me what you think could work, and then we'll look at it together. But this physician assistant took it one step further. She didn't come to me with the problem, and she didn't come to me with 3 options either. She knew the physician was going to be out, and I inform everybody whenever the doctor is out. She looked at the situation, thought through what might work, chose a solution, tried it, and it worked. And then only then did she come to me and tell me about it. And I remember thinking, oh, this is different. She hadn't just remembered what I told her. She made it her own. This wasn't a script anymore. It was a judgment. And I was so proud of her, really, really proud, because this is exactly what I had been trying to build. But there was something else sitting beside that pride. Something I didn't expect. A little grief, to be honest with you. Not because she had done something wrong. Quite the opposite. She had done exactly what I hoped she would learn to do. But when you've spent years being the one everybody comes to for answers, for fixes, for keeping everything moving, you build an identity around being needed. And suddenly, here was proof that she did not need me in the same way anymore. That was a good thing, but good change can still carry loss, because successful leadership eventually changes your role. And part of that change is letting go of the version of yourself who had to be in the middle of everything. That moment stayed with me because it showed me that what leadership looks like when it starts moving beyond the manager. And when I look back at everything we have talked about this season, I can see the progression much more clearly now. Boundaries taught them where responsibility lives. Release gave them room to use it. Steadiness showed them how to behave when things weren't settled. Trust gave them permission to act. And discernment taught them that not every problem needs the manager. And when all those things start working together, something begins to happen. People stop only following instructions and start developing real judgment. That matters, because a policy can tell somebody what to do when the situation fits the policy, and a procedure can walk them through the steps when everything is predictable. But clinic life is not predictable. People call out, patients get angry, phones go down, schedules blow up. Sometimes someone forgets something, or provider changes a plan and insurance says no. And suddenly the neat little procedure does not quite cover what is happening in front of you anymore. That's where judgment matters. Can they look at the situation and think it through, weigh the options, understand the impact on the patient, the team, the provider, the workflow, and recognize what belongs to them to solve versus what needs to come up the chain? That is what you are building. And I think this one is for the hardest transition for manager, because early in leadership, being needed can feel like proof that you are doing a good job. Everybody comes to you, asks you, needs your answer every single time. And you can start believing that this is what leadership is supposed to feel like. But there is another level, a point where you realize you don't want to be the answer to every single question. I want to build people who know how to think through the question. I don't want to prevent every mistake. I want to build enough safety, clarity, and confidence that people, employees, staff can make decisions and recover when something does not go perfectly, because most things are flexible. And when you finally believe that you lead differently. You don't hover as much. You don't grab every problem as quickly, and you don't need to be consulted for every small decision just to feel secure. From there, you start allowing people to use what you've already taught them. And this is the part I wish more managers were prepared for. When your team begins to do that, you may have to adjust too, because if your identity has been built around being the one only that everybody needs, you can accidentally pull responsibility back toward you just when your people are finally ready to carry it. Not because you don't trust them, but because being needed has become so familiar to you, and familiar can be hard to release. So sometimes the next level of leadership isn't teaching your team one more thing. It's allowing them to become less central without believing you have become less valuable. Your value changes. You move from being the person with every answer to the person who helped them build the people, help finding the solution. And that, my friend, is where leadership starts multiplying. What gets carried forward isn't your control, isn't your exact answer for every problem. It's the judgment and the way of thinking you built into people you trusted enough to act. I want to share with you a tool. I call it What Still Depends on Me Tracker. So original, right? So for our final tool for this season, I want to give you something very practical. For 1 week, keep a simple 3-column tracker. Column 1, what still comes to me? Write down the questions that they come to you for, the decisions and the problems and the interruptions that automatically land on your desk. Do not judge them, just notice them. That's column 1. And then column 2, why does this still come to me? Is it because only you have the authority? Because the team does not have enough information? Because nobody has been trained? Because expectations are unclear? Or because you have accidentally taught people, your employees, that you will answer faster than they can think? And column 3, what have to be true for someone else to carry this? Maybe they need access, or they need training, or maybe nobody's ever given them clear boundaries to work inside of. Sometimes it's as simple as a checklist or one honest conversation with you. And sometimes the thing that actually need is for you to stop answering so quickly. And here is the challenge I want to add to that tracker. Once a day for the next 7 days, when somebody brings you something that does not require an immediate answer, do not answer it. Ask this: what do you think we should do? And then actually listen, not so you can correct them right away, but to hear how they are thinking through it and what they're noticing and whether they can see the bigger picture. Because that is where you find out what they are ready to carry and where they still need to be taught. And while you are doing that, notice something else too. Notice what happens inside you when they do not need your answer. Do you feel relieved or proud or uncomfortable? Do you want to jump back in even when they are handling it? That is information too, because sometimes the thing that still depends on you is not the work. It's your willingness to let go. If this season has helped you see where you are still holding too much, take this one tool into your clinic this week. Don't just try to release everything at once. Just start noticing what still depends on you and what needs to be released and why. And, really trust the process that you've built and what you could begin to move if you gave someone else enough clarity, support, and room to think. Until next time, my friend, stand and deliver on wisdom. Aloha.